As you work with ArcGIS Pro, you'll see that there's a lot of different settings and resources out there that you can use. As one example, let's look at this full extent, which shows up under Navigate as sort of a little bit of a globe, as we can see right there. The default for the full extent is that it zooms to the entire world. If you have layers in your map, then it'll zoom to the extent of the largest or most expansive layer that you have on your map. But you can set this, if you want to, by instead of the extent of the data in all layers, you can make it a custom extent and just set it in this case to the geology of Crater Lake where you have that data, and then it'll automatically bring this up. If you don't want to display what's outside of that extent, then you can just check on here and it'll just remove all the data visually from what's outside of that extent. So then here is Crater Lake. Another nice thing about these different sort of settings is that you can make scale ranges. So if you just want some things like this simplified map of Oregon to appear at certain scales as you're zooming in or zooming out, you can set what scales it appears at. It'll start appearing at the scale that you set, and it'll stop appearing at the scale that you set. And then as you zoom further into Crater Lake, you might want this sort of geologic kind of coloring to show up at this scale. But maybe if you zoom in far enough, you actually want all of the symbology and all of the labels associated with the geology to show up as well. So the scale range is kind of nice for just letting you see more and more detail as you zoom in, or less and less detail as you zoom out. For the help in ArcGIS Pro, it's actually associated with a website as opposed to something you access directly from the software. So you'll want to use a web browser, and as you get to the ArcGIS help, you'll see there's different tabs and links. This is, it does, as you work through the help, it leaves a series of breadcrumbs so that in this case, someone was looking at projects and then project items, and then they can go deeper. You also have a place here where you can search for different information, and then you also have different tabs up here that you can flip back and forth between. Back at the catalog pane, allows you to access, as I mentioned, many different types of items. The maps that you have in your project, you can access the toolboxes from here, different databases, different folders, all those sorts of things. So and the way that it's set up at the top is you can see what's in your project, or you can look at other things like portal or favorites as well. If you go under our catalog into the portal, you can see that these are things that can be accessed through ArcGIS Online. So these are coming off of the out of the cloud. You wouldn't have to have these layers stored locally on your machine in order to add them to your map. So the type of information that you can add from a portal include things like other people's web maps, feature layers, image layers, and map image layers. So all four of those things you're easily able to add into your own map. You don't have to worry about storing them on your computer, but you do have, of course, have to have internet access in order to be able to get to all of those. As you'll probably notice as you start working in ArcGIS Pro, these different panes, such as the table of contents and our catalog and geoprocessing, they can all be moved around. You can just grab one of these and move them to different areas of your map. Your main map is typically in the middle, and then these other panes can be distributed around your map in any way that you see fit. So they can either be adjacent, stacked, or they could just be floating right on top of your map if you prefer to do it this way. This is useful for kind of what you feel comfortable working with, but sometimes you can close out different panes. They're not gone. You would just go under View and open up that pane again in order to see it. When you're managing the layers of the map, this is going to come from, this is going to be over here in your contents, and the layers are going to be all of these things down here. So, so these are things that you would add into the maps, like where the volcanoes are in Oregon. And then in this case, they're symbolized by how many times they've erupted, with the largest things like Mount St. Helens having erupted up to 36 times. So we can see by the size of this, the ones that have erupted more often are bigger and have a darker outline around them, and the ones that have only erupted a few times are smaller and have a lighter outline around them. And we can stylize those different layers here, but they're all stored together in this case, we're using the drawing order to show them because we've clicked on this in the contents pane. But we can if we want to group different layers together. So let's say I had layers and they were all associated with the geology of Crater Lake, the crater floor geology, the classes and the labels, and the different rock types. All of those really contribute to the Crater Lake geology. So I could just choose all three of them and choose to group those together into kind of a summary layer called Crater Lake geology. The nice thing about this, if I want to turn all three of these layers off, I can just check this one box off and they all get turned off at the same time. So it makes it easier to turn things on and off together. It makes it and kind of helps to organize your layers as well if you have layers that are all that all have a certain theme or idea associated with them. Another example of how you can change settings is with symbology. So this is the symbology pane. If we wanted to go back, we would press here. But you can see that one of your first choices here is between the gallery and the properties. The gallery is going to give you some examples of maybe what, if this were something like a highway, what different symbols might be used for highways and what other people use for that. But if you want to then further customize things, you go underneath this tab over here, which is the properties. And here we're looking at the different properties, and we can change the color or the size or the or any of the other things associated with this this symbol that we're putting on our map. So this is just another place where we can get at the properties and change the symbology, starting perhaps with a gallery type view, but then modifying it from there.